Hello and welcome everyone to Family Law Fridays presented by Florida Women's Law Group. My name is Jadelyn Fleischer and I'm a legal intern here at Florida Women's Law Group. Family Law Fridays is designed to be a resource for all women with any type of family law issue. Today we will be discussing how substance abuse can affect a divorce and time sharing. Before we get started, I would like to give you some information about our host. Our host is Heather Quick, founder and CEO of Florida Women's Law Group, which is a family law firm that advocates for women in North Florida. The firm educates and empowers women on their rights and the law so that they can find the strength to endure the process and end up better not only financially, but emotionally as well. Heather Quick has been a licensed Florida attorney for the past 20 years, with the majority of her practice being in family law. Please join me in welcoming Heather Quick to Family Law Fridays.
Thank you so much, JD. And thank you everyone for joining us today. And the topic that we are going to talk about is one that I have talked about on many occasions, and it is certainly so prevalent in so many lives. It affects so many people. I think it would be hard to not meet someone or to meet somebody that doesn't have some link or some effect of substance abuse through their family or friends throughout their life. And I am in a unique position being a divorce attorney. So I have, the privilege of so many people that trust us with what's going on in their life, and certainly sharing these issues and challenges that either they have or their spouse, and how they are treated, how the courts treat individuals who have substance abuse issues is really important. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because if you've seen, we talked before, or we've talked on various topics, substance abuse in and of itself, if you're divorcing and there are no minor children, it's not really going to be an issue unless there may be some looking for treatment payments. Potentially it would factor into alimony, but overall, it doesn't have as much, it's not as relevant as an issue when you're not dealing with children. But when we're dealing with minor children, clearly it's a big deal. It is certainly something that we discuss because there's the safety of the children. And if you are under the influence of substances, are you putting those children at risk? What if something happens? Are you going to be passed out, not be able to take care of them? Are you going to put them in a vehicle and expose them to, danger, obviously death, accident, getting arrested, and things like that? So there are so many things that cause concern, obviously, for the parent who is handing over their children child to their husband, and they think they're under the influence, or know that they use either prescription or illicit drugs. You can abuse either one. It's an issue, and it's a concern, and it's a concern that we should address when you're going through a divorce or post-divorce, because there are so many things that the court can do. Obviously, yes, there's things they can do to help them get help, but primarily the focus is keeping the children safe. And that are some of the things I'm going to talk about here today. And now, in the unique position that we've been as of the date of this filing, we are phasing back into society and, getting back to work. But let's look at the statistics. And JD, thank you, my legal intern, pulled up some statistics for me. And of course, those are always can be manipulated, but we're going to go with what's been published. And just for reference in the call, in the webinar, like this is what we're talking about, the alcohol sales during the COVID-19 on-demand alcohol delivery saw a 300% spike in sales in the month of March. And, the online alcohol and, spirit, orders also up by 20%. And this is really interesting as well. If you've ever done the online scheduling things, whether it's through Zoom, but there's one called Doodle, there has been a 296% increase in group meetings, specifically for the title under a virtual happy hour and drinking events in March. So, and then alcohol sales have jumped 55%. since March, and certainly the online sales of alcohol are growing faster, and those were, I think, over 240% for the week ending in March 21st. So overall, people are buying more alcohol and therefore most likely consuming more alcohol. And, the problem within that, the potential dangers are, one, many people remain quarantined, many people remain working from home and dealing with the stress of that alone, the stress of potentially less work, how that's affecting income, and just, I think, feeling confined, but being surrounded by the family that you love, but all the time without as much ability to get away increases the stress. And then, of course, alcohol and stress really, doesn't help it. Increased alcohol definitely increases your stress. And that's according to the medical news today. It also really affects your neurotransmitter balance within your brain and your ability to probably be rational, have better conversations, and manage your emotions. So all of that, and anxiety, and depression. So all of those things combined together mean that, one, they were present before. Things we're seeing, as we've talked previously, are escalated during this time of uncertainty and so much, change, that we're going to see that. And then in the divorce world, where we've always seen substance abuse issues, frankly. And I know we are seeing more now because maybe it's increased, or maybe it's just gotten to the point that you can't take it anymore. So now you want a divorce. You know that your spouse drinks to excess and you're concerned about your children. So what do? Well, one, you tell your attorney, because these are things that I take very seriously. And I also know that if this is an issue, you must bring it up. It's not something that you wait and bring up later, because the safety of your children should never be something that you use as a tactic, as a strategy, as something to gain an advantage. That'll backfire. It'll just flat out backfire. So it's either real or it's not. And if it's real, you're going to have to face it. And you may not want to, because you've been in that relationship too. And I'm not a psychologist by any means. I've had a lot of experience from the legal side dealing with it. And it's just, I think what they call that, these codependent relationships. And so you've played a part in that by protecting that person, and you don't want to do this. I know you don't want to do it, but you have to do what's best for your children and you. And so it may be a very, very hard choice to say, okay, yes, let's address the alcoholism. What does that look like? And when we are going through a divorce, filing motions, we have the ability to ask the court to maybe suspend time sharing, only order supervised time sharing, and or deal with, you can do testing, but then the most common, like the way we would start this evaluate would be with a substance abuse evaluation. And that can be through alcohol, prescription drugs, or illicit drugs. There's many ways they can do it. They can do hair follicle. They can actually do nail samples. Nail samples work really well for alcohol to show trends in drinking. It's fascinating. But hair will, show a period of days of the drugs in the system. And the reason that we do this, it is best by somebody in the mental health profession, because usually they ask a lot of questions and then determine, based on the results of the test, if this person, if your spouse should have counseling, should have treatment in addition to, maybe some supervision, because it's not going to get better on its own. So there's frequently if this is an issue, we're going to ask the court, hey, order a substance abuse evaluation and treatment, so that, one, we can find out where they stand, and then the court can determine. And what they'll do usually, and I've seen it go many different ways. So this is not an absolute. There's always usually, 2 or 3 ways that the court can go with this type of thing. Sometimes they'll say, well, you go get help, bring proof, then we'll talk about unsupervised time with your children. So usually what that is it will be supervision of the children, because then that's what the court's concern is. As you are, the children are safe. He's not drunk, driving under the influence, not able to take care of them. So that is how we address that issue with the children. And then some judges will say, you know what, I'm going to order you to go to the specific drug and treatment. It's usually outpatient, but it can vary. And then once you've completed that, then come back and we'll look at how the time sharing is going to go. There are many things similar to, like, if you've had a DUI and been arrested, there's a, I want to say it's a interlock thing. It's something that you have to breathe into before the car starts. Can't remember the name off. Not the same extent as the breathalyzer, but similar. And they have that called SoberLink. You can hook it to an iPad. You can do all of these things where it can document that you're sober before you have the children. So there are safeguards. That just deals with alcohol. You know, the other issues can be, you know, random tests, you know, through treatment. Sometimes once you've been married, when you've been married and been with somebody for a long time, you can tell by their voice. So I've met many people, they say, I can just, on the phone, I can absolutely tell if they're under the influence, because you know them so well and you've seen them in those various states. So that's important just to know. And I've had judges say, hey, if you determine that, you know, then we'll do X, Y, Z, or you don't have to send the kids. That is rare, but it's happened. At the end of the day, the courts are concerned about the children, and not only that the children are safe, that they are as, you know, not in a situation where they're being put at risk, excuse me. And one of the, you know, sometimes what it has really many people concerned is, yes, the alcohol, but also then coupled with drugs. And I've had so many of our clients say, you know, and then they just pass out at night. They would never, ever hear the children if anything happened. That's concerning. And that's something that the courts need to know and look at, because, you know, the courts generally are very proactive, very much encouraging a lot of time sharing with both parents. And that usually comes down to more overnight. And it's typically that's when you're going to see more drinking throughout the evening and then overnight. And there is, of course, depends on the age of the child. I have been involved in cases where there was an alcoholic parent and the children learned the safety plan and what to do. What to do if they say, you know, what they said, daddy's talking funny, meaning kind of slurred speech, or, you know, he's doing something, they know who to call. They know what to do, which is obviously not ideal, but it allows them to make those decisions and reach out to somebody. And so very important. You can really, once they're about 6, 7, but it's tough. It's tough. Every child's going to be different, and it depends the extent of which they have seen that behavior from their father and what their experience is with it. And, you know, this is, you know, a lot of times, sometimes, you know, you see things once. I haven't seen it since, but we don't do a lot of dependency work anymore, really any of it. But I bring it to your attention because in the event, and I'm talking about Department of Children and Families. So if you know that your spouse X has a serious problem, in that's not safe for the children, but you leave the children with them anyway, the Department of Children and Families, I have seen take the children away. And the non-offending parent who just left your kids with them, they said, you failed to protect your children because you will not deal with this issue of your spouse's alcoholism or drug use, and you're putting your children in danger. So now we're going to remove them from both of you. That is a harsh thing to happen. And usually there's other family members intervening because they're concerned, and they, you know, it kind of goes into what I was saying, that codependency where you're just trying to make it work, appease them. You think they're going to get better. But who ends up, you know, being at risk is the children. So I have seen that. And I know that it is, you know, something to think about. And you certainly absolutely do have a duty to protect your children. And when you're in the middle of a divorce anyway, or about to go through a divorce, there is a lot of stress. Sometimes there is drinking. You're coping, not the healthiest way, but many people do. It's really important to recognize that for what it is, and if it's time to be like to back off and back down, because too quickly, when you're dealing with the stress, anxiety of the divorce, that drinking can go to excess and put you put you in a state that you don't want to be in, you shouldn't be in, and it really sets you up for a lot of trouble down the road. And it's difficult. I'm not saying it's not. And then coupled with what we've all been going through with the COVID-19 and how the stress and, just of the unrest that has been going on in so many cities, there's a lot. There's a lot going on out there. It would seem reasonable, of course, to have a few drinks to relax in the evening, maybe calm your anxiety, calm your nerves. Just understand when you're in this situation that it could quickly go the other way, and that self-awareness is one of the first things that typically goes out the door when you're drinking too much and then you're in denial about it. So just be aware of how you are handling your own stress and anxiety during this period of time and throughout a divorce. It may be hard, maybe more difficult to abstain, but it's certainly worth it, and it can give you a lot more clarity on making decisions and help steady your emotions a bit. Just like we were saying earlier with the anxiety, the alcohol increases that. It also increases the depression. So, and it really also increases your risk, I think, of the COVID. And I think that has to do probably more with the assumption that you'd be drinking in bars and within crowds of people. But regardless, it's an issue that, has never really gone away, and it affects so many people. And when we are in the court system, they take a very proactive approach. If you apprise them of that issue and you let them know, hey, this is something that's at issue, and I think my spouse needs help, but I also think that if they have the children, they need to be sober, and I need the court's help in fashioning a way to do that. They are very much going to do that. There are a lot of remedies available. And many times when doing our Family Law Friday, the point is to let you know there are a lot of options. It can talk about creating anxiety if you don't think there are options. You don't think there is a way to get help. But there really is. There are usually a lot of options. And sometimes you just need have somebody helping you think creatively, and that you've confided in, and your lawyer is what the real issues are, and then we can come up with some creative solutions or ways to get you the relief you want. And when we deal with these issues, the courts are, like I said, very well versed in the issues of substance abuse, how it affects not only the parents, but how it does affect the children, the safety of the children. I've done many presentations with the family law judges here in Northeast Florida on these issues and how best to deal with them during these types of situations with divorce, as well as when we have issues of injunctions and domestic violence, because you will see an increase in alcohol use in reported issues of domestic violence as well. So again, that adds to it. It creates more issues that, when brought to the court's attention, they can do something about it, not only to protect you, but to protect your children. So I encourage you to reach out if this is an issue that is affecting you, because there is hope. There are ways to get you help and relief. And or if you know somebody in this situation, and just to give them the information and watch the video to know that it's not a lost cause. There are ways to help, and it's not always cookie cutter. It's very fact specific, as you've heard me say before. That's why it's really important to provide all the facts for your attorney. It's really important that your attorney asks you a lot of questions so that we can make sure the court's aware of all the things, so that it doesn't appear as though we are trying to bring up an issue just to make the other person look bad. And again, that has to do with your credibility and using this not as a point of leverage, but as a way to protect your children is very important. So with that, I know JD will follow up with you on how you can reach us and follow up with the office if you have specific questions about these issues, or as you go through a divorce, you are concerned about your children and your husband's substance abuse issues, and just are looking for help. So thank you for joining us today. We are certainly here to help you and look forward to doing so.
Thank you, Heather, and to everyone who was able to listen in today for Family Law Fridays. We hope you found this topic extremely helpful today. As always, if there's something you would like addressed or a question you would like answered, please call, email, or send us a Facebook message, and it could be addressed in an upcoming video. We're available by phone at 904-241-0012. Thank you, and see you next time.